I was born in 1961 in Cairo, in Egypt, for a very secular family. My father was actually an agnostic, and he was a Marxist, was an orthopedic surgeon. My mom was a French teacher. My uncle was a movie star, and the family was not religious at all, honestly. And around the age of maybe 15 and a half or something like that, I started to think about the concept of God and creation because of discussions in the school. And I didn't know much about religions back then at all. But I reached to the existence or to the Lord God just by thinking in his creation. And what really was pivotal in these moments, I remember when I studied the structure and function of the DNA molecule in biology. This was a moment I will never forget, believe me, and I felt that the Lord is speaking to me in this molecule. And this interest in religions went further, deeper in reading until I was approached inside our medical school. I was a medical doctor, and in our medical school, there was a group called Jihad, a radical organization that approached me. They realized I have certain potential or abilities that can be beneficial to them. I was enthusiastic about religion, and so they actually invited me to join them. And I was young and enthusiastic, so I joined them. And believe me, within 6 months period, or even less, I became radicalized completely in my way of thinking. I was thinking to go to Afghanistan, to fight jihad and wars. And the whole way of looking to life, to people, start to be different. I started to hate, simply, after I used to be a child who loved everyone. I stopped listening to music. And it changed everything in my life. And the moment that was, I believe, crucial back then, that helped me to get out of this, they already did certain brainwashing tactics, including inhibition of my critical thinking and suppression of my human conscience. I believe these were the two things that, if I summarize what they did to me, is suppression of my critical thinking and my human conscience. But the moment when they asked me to share with them in kidnapping a police officer from Egypt, and they wanted to dig a grave for him and bury him alive, this was too much for me to tolerate, honestly. And this was a moment when I started to shake, and I felt there is something wrong, because my nature is not violent. Maybe theoretically I wanted to join and share, but my nature was not like that. So when it contradicts my human conscience significantly, and my nature, I started to think. And the process of thinking, once you start the process of thinking, things were reversed backward, and I was really gradually, I cannot say it was complete 180 degrees, but gradually I managed to leave this whole ideology. And why I'm here today, it happened when I was in New Zealand years ago, and I was speaking about radical Islam before September 11. I started fighting it 35 years ago. I was speaking in mosques against the radicals, directly, eye to eye, 35 years ago. So when I traveled to New Zealand, I immigrated to New Zealand, I spoke about radical Islam. I predicted an attack on the Twin Towers, and no one believed me back then. And it's in the Daily Express, they already checked the facts. And no one believed me. But when September 11th happened, I was invited here to speak in Washington on the radio, TV, Intelligence Summit, Director of National Intelligence. And since then, I started to be known more in this area, or countering or fighting radical Islam.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned there was a phrase that within 6 months you became radical.
Absolutely.
I guess what you're talking about is the suppression of your thought process,
yes,
which you mentioned. But how else, so people understand what that means, how did they radicalize you?
Yeah.
Now, granted, you were young. When you're young, you want to be part of the group.
Absolutely. It's actually, if I explained exactly to you, it started the very first day when I went to join the Jama'ah Islamiyah. Joining was simple, just to put your name and go and start praying with them. The five, there are 5 prayers in there. So in the medical school, there was a mosque for them, and I met with a guy called Mukhtar in front of the anatomy section. I remember it very well. He waited for me, and he escorted me to go and start joining them and praying with them. This was the very first day. On the way to the mosque, the process of radicalization started by telling me, my real name is Tariq, so he said Tariq. I just like to say the exact thing, okay? I use Tawfik for security reasons. So he said to me, look, the most important thing you need to learn from now on is that al-fikr kufr. Al-fikr, like it's FKR, Arabic word, means to think. Kufr, KFR, same letters and they rhyme, okay? Means to become an infidel. So the message was simply, Alan, if you started to think or to use the brain, you will become an infidel. Suppress it. In fact, he gave me an example that I will never forget. He said to me, your brain, Tawfik, or Tariq, he said, your brain is just like a donkey. In the Arab culture, a donkey is a symbol of stupidity, okay? So by itself, it's an insult. But he said to me, your brain is just like a donkey. You use the donkey to reach the palace of the king, Allah Almighty, Islam. And once you reach this palace, do you take your donkey or my brain inside or you leave it outside? He said to him, I leave it outside. And this was the very first lesson. I went there, Alan, and it was the prayer. And during the prayer, they asked us to stand, but not in the usual manner of every mosque. They asked us to be shoulder to shoulder, which is relatively common in many mosques. But what was new was he wanted our feet touching the feet. So I had really to stand in an awkward position for the whole time of the prayer. And they made sure that we are standing with no gaps at all between us. I was surprised, why is this? This never happened to any other mosque, probably. And the answer came when he started to use a verse from the Quran that says, إن الله يحب الذين يقاتلون في سبيله صفا كأنهم بنيان مرصوص, which means God loves those who fight for his cause as if they are one wall together, no gaps. So even the psychology of jihad, the moment he said this verse, believe me, and I felt I am a fighter or a warrior in the war for Islam. That is what I felt when I was praying. And this led to another form of brainwashing, the use of hellfire in a way that was so frightening for us, like describing for you the torture techniques that's going to happen to you if you didn't follow their teaching. So you become so scared. Plus what I called the sex deprivation syndrome, that was, it was difficult to marry and inappropriate to have any extramarital relationship in our culture. Plus the scholars, most of them, not all, but most of them prohibited any physiological release of sexual desires. This is on one hand. And on the other hand, you go and read in the Islamic teaching books, the traditional ones, description of the women in details, waiting up there in the paradise. I don't like to go into the details. They are really embarrassing. So you have this suppression on one hand, and this fantasies with the description in details on the other hand. You become ready to die honestly just to have sex in paradise. That was not a joke. And there is evidence supporting this. For example, majority of people who do suicide bombing are males, not females. Right. So there is possibility of testosterone effect. Number 2, the peak age for testosterone in males is around 18 years old. If you see the biochemistry endocrinology books, it's this peak age, which is the same peak for suicide bombers. So it's the role of sex deprivation was, I believe, crucial. Plus the dream that all our problems, economic problems in the country will be solved by Sharia and Islam. I'm glad this is no longer valid reason for them. That's why they don't use it anymore. But back then it was very valid. It gave us hope that we will solve every problem on earth if we followed Sharia. And their logic was simple. When the early Muslims followed jihad and wars on others, they dominated the world and they became the first empire in the most powerful one. When we did not do jihad or violent wars to spread the religion, we became weak. That was the rationale.
Before you ask your next question, I'm just going to adjust your microphone a little bit. I think it's started rubbing just a little bit.
Sorry, I move with my...
No, that's fine.
Forgive me.
That is perfectly fine.
There, if you would like water.
Oh, thank you so much. Can I?
Yeah, go for it, absolutely.
So,
Want to wet your whistle? So far, you've gotten it fine.
Yes.
and the voice is clear there? The recording is clear?
Prevent any future problems. Okay. There you are. Apologies about that, gentlemen. And whenever you're ready, Alan.
So Dr. Hamid, first of all, I'm curious, you were studying to be a physician.
Yeah, I was a physician.
You were a physician.
I'm an internal medicine specialist and medical educationalist as well.
Excellent. No wonder we have so much in common. You showed me earlier this morning a very big book
Yes.
that has taken you some time to put together. And it reminded me of what we see in Judaism as these big books with the Torah and all the commentary. in it.
Yes.
Would you please tell us about this incredibly large book that you've written?
Thank you so much for raising this point. This book was one of my dreams in life because I felt trying to read the religious text with the glasses of 1,500 years ago will be disastrous. There was no reformation that happened and continued to be successful in the Muslim world. And literal understanding of verses without seeing other verses, without looking to the language in detail, can be disastrous. So I decided to take the mission and write a commentary. The concept of the commentary was very simple. Number one, I tried to take the violent verses and reinterpret them in a different way. And I can give you example after this. Just I want to set the concepts first. The second concept is to get the positive verses, the good ones, and emphasize their meaning. So it was like I'm working here by reinterpreting the violent ones and supporting the good ones. So for example, there is a verse in the Quran that says, فَاقْتُلُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَيْثُ وَجَدْتُمُوهُم. Kill the infidels or idolaters wherever you find them. This verse was used by many people to radicalize them and make them feel that killing any non-Muslim is okay for them. And this is a big disaster when you read this literally and you take it literally. So I took this verse at 5 levels of interpretation. And as a matter of honesty, I learned the concept of analysis at 5 levels from a Jewish rabbi that I met, I can't say by chance, but some people call it chance, but I believe it was not, sitting together in the aeroplane. We became friends outside, and we discovered that my chair, we sit beside one another inside the aeroplane. Just absolute miracle for me. And I learned the concept. He gave me an example on the analysis, how the analysis can go in language at several levels. He told me Moses crossed the street, why Moses crossed the streets, when Moses. So he started to show me how the level of interpretation can make a difference. I took the concept, and we have a verse in the Quran that says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, which means ask the people of the Torah if you don't have enough knowledge. It was talking about religion itself. So I said, how about trying to do the same and thinking. So I took this verse, kill the infidels wherever you find them. And I took it at the following levels of interpretation. Level 1, who are those infidels? Is it everyone or specific ones? The answer is only specific ones. Level 2, on which basis I build this assumption? On the fact that the verse uses a suffix there before the word infidels. Al-kafirin. Al means the in Arabic. It didn't say any infidel. Otherwise, it would have used the expression man kafar in Arabic, which generalizes it to everybody. It's like saying I'm going to the White House in Washington on Thursday, or a White House. Completely different things. So the reason why it is specific is the use of defining article before the word. So it's not generalized. The third level of interpretation is what these infidels, why God was unhappy with them, is because they actually tortured the early believers and kicked them out of Mecca and burned some of them alive. Level 4, what is the common theme of these things or actions, is discrimination against a small religious minority because they are different from the majority. Level 5 interpretation is what can we learn today from this, is not to discriminate against any minority, otherwise we will be exactly like those infidels.
That's quite brilliant.
Thank you, my dear. So the whole Quran, I wish I have a copy here to show you it in the camera, but it's a whole book. I remember, Alan, when I started this mission, it took me around a year because the information was in my heart and my mind, but I just put it in writing. And I remember my wife, her name is Maha, she was the one who typed. I had some neck pains back then. I was unable to type, and she doesn't know how to use the keyboard by two hands. So believe me, she was typing by one finger, 250,000 letters. 250,000 letters, we had the numbers on Word, and the book was created. It's now available in Arabic language, and I hope, I dream, I don't know, to see it in all languages, and this was the base for my Facebook page that has more than 2 million followers today based on these interpretations.
So today, what do you do today? What is your life today? What's your work? Other, of course, than this book, which took quite a lot of time. You've come to Aspen, you've come here to speak with the other 4 reformists, if you would. But what is your everyday life? What is your goal right now?
Actually, I have 2 goals, to be honest with you, 2 goals. One of them is to defeat radical Islam via intellectual work, writing op-eds, adding more information to Facebook, speaking here and there. So this is part of what I'm doing. The other part is I developed a model for learning called the multidimensional learning model, which was the first model to integrate cognitive psychology into the field of medical education successfully. So I created a YouTube, and now I am building a whole system for medical education. The YouTube, I put more, like cardiology, endocrinology, most topics of medicine, ECG, X-ray. It's available online. It has 1.7 million views in 3 years from medical doctors. Just it's a very small fraction of the society, and 36,000 subscribers. Plus 100,000 users overall from the medical system. So I'm thinking to take this at a big scale. So I feel both work in the same direction, saving a human life. So I don't see any contradiction between both, believe me. I feel they are work in the same direction, which is saving a human life. When I mention human life, would you mind me sharing with you something that I believe very precious to me, and I felt just in my heart now when I remember the word human life, that I should share it with you. It's just a short poem that I wrote one day to the spirit or the soul of the very first victim of beheading. He was a journalist called Daniel Pearl. I'm sure you remember him.
Absolutely.
Daniel was invited by these evil radicals to dinner to do an interview with them, and after they beheaded him, and the last thing he said was, "Yes, I am a Jew." And this really moved me. This was one of the moments, I believe, in my life that really moved me. I couldn't sleep that night, Alan. I woke up at around 2 a.m. in the morning. I couldn't sleep, so I went to the kitchen table, put a piece of paper in front of me, and I start writing some words to the soul of Daniel Pierre. I said to him, And I will put it in Arabic and then translate. أقسم أني لن أترك اسمك يمحى من ذاكرة التاريخ. I swear that I will never ever let your name be erased from the memory of history. وسأكتب اسمك بالدمع. And I will write your name with my tears. وسأحفر اسمك في الصخر. And I will carve your name at the top of the mountains so that everybody will see it. فما قتلوك وحدك يا دانيال. They haven't only killed you, O Daniel. بل قتلوا الحق وقتلوا الحب وقتلوا أحلام الأجيال. But they killed the meaning of love, the meaning of the truth and the dreams of the next generations. قسما قسما بأنينك وقت الذبح. I swear with your groaning pains when they slaughtered you. وبدمع طفلك في الرحم. And I swear with the tears of your baby when it was still in the womb. أني لن أنساك يا دانيال. That I will never ever forget you, O Daniel. إن قتلوك لأنك يهودي. If they have killed you because you are a Jew, فأنا يهودي منذ الآن. Then I am a Jew from now on. God bless you. Thank you. And if I would like to summarize what I am fighting, I am fighting specific principles that leads to violence and hatred. I fight the following principles: killing apostates, killing someone because so I believe in freedom of religion. I fight for women's rights, to stop beating women and stoning women to death in Sharia laws. I fight to stop calling Jews pigs and monkeys. I fight to stop the concept of declaring wars on non-Muslims to spread the religion. I fight to end the concept of slavery in the mainstream Islamic teaching that exists till this very moment. I fight to have equality and prevent gay killing. So if fighting this will make me be seen as Islamophobe, then I am proud to be an Islamophobe.